and we are delighted to welcome him to the program this morning. Bruce Levine joins us on the Arturo Tire Hotline. Arturo, your hometown tire, Arturo.com. It was a real delight to listen after the game to the post-game show and hear Inside the Clubhouse live. Great stuff, Bruce. Welcome to the program.
Well, we had such great support around us with David doing this show after Pat and Ron let it go. And then, when you have a guy like Paul running the dials and doing all his magic, three great producers back at the station. So, there were so many people, Ryan Porth. I mean, that's, you talk about these teams doing everything right. Our team did too. So kudos to everybody we work with.
No doubt, Bruce, you did a terrific job. It was a pleasure to work with you last night. We're going to have a lot of fun tomorrow and Inside the Clubhouse. Tell me this, when you talked to Jed Hoyer, when you got a sense of Craig Counsell, the relief versus the joy and what's next, do you feel like this is a Cub team that is satisfied with removing that onus of not having won a playoff series since 2017, or is this a Cub team that feels like they're just getting started?
It's a very confident team. I think that they expect themselves to go all the way, and I think any of the teams remaining, probably feel that way as well. I would have said if Cincinnati got in there somehow, past the Dodgers, that even they would have felt that way. But really, I mean, you have such good teams left. You have Philadelphia, the Dodgers, and then Milwaukee and the Cubs. And, those are the teams with the four best records. So that's how it should be. And, it's going to be a war with Philadelphia and the Dodgers, and same thing with Milwaukee and the Cubs.
Yeah, what movement happens on the playoff roster? Obviously, it's a longer series. You go from a 3-game series to a 5-game series. A familiar opponent. Do you have any feel for who's in and who's out yet?
No, but I would say I want that extra pitcher in a 5-game series,
yes,
right?
Yes.
So we go from 12 to 13. Maybe Ballesteros with the way that that Tucker is hitting now. You feel better. Maybe Ballesteros doesn't have to be on the roster. Right?
Don't like that, Bruce.
Well, you know what? I mean, you might like him, but he doesn't have a position. That's exactly the answer.
He's playing the pinch hitter bat off the bench where you maybe in the 6th inning next time that Matt Shaw's up against a tough righty, you pinch hit him because you need more baller. You need more baller.
Maybe Coach Coach Turner needs to sit down, Bruce.
Do you really think it'll be maybe so, Bruce? But how about Ballesteros versus Alcantara? Wouldn't you rather have the hot bat than the extra outfielder?
Yeah, I mean you could, but again, it's going to be 13. Let's agree that he's going to take the extra pitcher for 5 games rather than 3, right? I mean, even Savali, a long man who's had a lot of experience, he probably wants on the roster. But I think the question is, can he use people multiple days in a row? And the good news for the Cubs is between games 1 and 2 and 3, there's days off, right? So you have game 1 Saturday, off day Sunday. Game 2 Monday, off day Tuesday. Wednesday and Thursday in a row at Wrigley. That's the first time any team can clinch. Hopefully it's the Cubs. So you have some flexibility using more bullpen guys in a row because of the fact you don't have back-to-back. I think that's going to be huge for the Cubs and their very, very good bullpen.
Bruce, I really think you tried to get out of Craig Counsell, who was starting game 1, even though you threw me under the bus. Who do you think it will be after hearing his answer? And how does Javier Assad fit into this series plans?
Well, yeah, it's either Assad or Ray, right? So Ray threw 15 pitches 2 days ago. That would be the same thing as him throwing a side session before he's going to start. So, excuse me, he's going to be fresh. The question is, Assad threw 79 pitches on Sunday. He shut him out, 6 strikeouts, 1 walk against the Cardinals. Do you take that as really game ready for the playoffs or only game ready for the Cardinals as opposed to the Milwaukee hitters? Those are the things that you weigh. Certainly Ray's been outstanding in the second half. If it's me, I'm going with Ray. I don't know how you guys feel.
I'm curious, Bruce, how does Major League Baseball handle umpiring moving forward? Are those ratings and all the things already settled and they know who's eligible for what series, or will they take into account something like DJ Rayburn making a terrible call in the 9th inning? I mean, it worked out very well for the Cubs, but on a 3-2 pitch that was clearly low, clearly outside the strike zone, he rang up Xander Bogaerts, and they were out of their minds about it. It did change the game. I mean, that's the first out of the inning. Instead of, if things had played out, and I'm sure they wouldn't have, Bruce, and I don't want to oversell it, but let's say they left they left the pitcher in for another batter. That was a hit batsman. I think at that point, Craig Counsell would have made a move there on Brad Keller, but I'm just wondering, that DJ Rayburn call was awful, and there's stories about it all over the place. Will MLB not discipline him, but will they take that into account when assigning future series?
They usually give these series on merit over the year, and they rarely have the umpires do back-to-back series with the same teams. Okay, so hopefully you're not seeing Rayburn, and you're going to move on. But there's going to be, look, every pitch is analyzed and overanalyzed in the playoffs, and they mean that much. So I'm not going to say it's not important. It is, But again, let's move forward to next year. Cubs are in the playoffs against the Brewers, and you're going to have the ABS system, right?
Yes.
So that can be corrected. It's a shame they're not starting it now for the playoffs, but nonetheless, give Major League Baseball the credit to know that moving forward, these big moments, you should have those challenges.
Bruce, when you look at what happened with the bullpen last night, I think that went by design. This was a push-button victory for Craig Counsell, even though,
really?
Well, I think Brad Keller struggled in the 9th, but this was the order that I think you understood because of the pockets that they always talk about. This pocket worked for Thielbar. This pocket worked for Palencia. This pocket said Pomerantz. I think that you go forward, and I think you are encouraged by surviving this, but you sound skeptical. Do you think that Brad Keller is going to be scarred by a bad outing?
No, not at all. I mean, he's been fantastic. The whole bullpen's been fantastic all year, right? And it's come from guys that nobody expected, nobody even heard of or from. You might have heard of, but certainly not from his Cubs going into this season. So they Hoyer and Carter Hawkins, give them credit for bringing guys in, giving Hadavy and Counsell and the pitching people credit for putting them in great roles, give these veterans credit for being ready for this challenge. I'm not concerned about Brad Keller, but the wear and tear certainly looked there in the 9th inning yesterday. I mean, he certainly wasn't perfect. You could see, some of it wearing on him with the home run and the 2 hit batters, but
that was his second inning, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
I'm just saying, that's an unusual.
But he started
usage.
the inning so well. That sinker was a deadly pitch. He gets the strikeout, and then he falls apart. So I don't know what to make of that, because you wonder if it became something that, I don't know what happened, but it wasn't good.
The one thing about the playoffs, and I always try to remind people and myself this, when you're seeing the playoffs, you're seeing already burnt out and guys, starting pitchers, especially bullpens, that have really been through it, right, to get there. Credit to Counsell, none of his guys feel like they're burnt out. They all feel they've been treated extraordinarily well and rested most of the time. But when you get into the playoffs, you get 3 games in a row, everything changes. I think Thielbar threw all 3 in a row. So, those are the things that you look at and that are different. Again, both managers, in particular, Counsell is going to get a break by not having 3 games in a row this time. Actually, not even 2 games in a row until you get to Game 3 on Wednesday.
Who would you start tomorrow?
Ray.
Okay.
He's been the best guy, and I would.
And he was used 15 pitches the other.
I could see that. Also, pitching back in Milwaukee, he's going to have the heightened focus of going against his former team. Maybe I don't know if that factors in at all, Bruce. Also, you had a great interview post game with Cade Horton. Just wonder, what should we expect from him? Not this series necessarily, but do you think that can they win this series? If they do, would he come back?
Well, he was cautiously optimistic, David. I mean, you were right there listening. So he's not discounting it. I think it's a long shot because he's not throwing right now, but he's going to be throwing pretty soon here. So would it look like just a well-rested guy who is sharp after not pitching for 10 days or 2 weeks, or a guy that's really, out of the ordinary situation that he doesn't know how to approach? I don't know. It's difficult with a young pitcher. It's the same thing with Assad. Even though Assad's a veteran now, it's his first playoff experience, right? And you guys point out Ray, having been there, the veteran. I'm not discounting Assad. I think he'll likely be in that first game. If Counsell is counting outs and batters. That's how his mind works. He counts. We like him for 12 batters. We like him for 15 batters. We'd like him for 15 outs. That's the mindset of Craig Counsell as he works his bullpen, and I don't think anybody's done any better. You saw those electric arms of the Padres. That's almost an automatic, those arms. That's unbelievable there to get by that bullpen and win a series. Credit to the Chicago Cubs.
Great stuff. Really appreciate it, Bruce.
A lot of fun, Coom. You carried me through the 5th and throughout the night, and it was a lot of intensity, a lot of things that you were waiting to see how the Cubs would handle this moment. And we saw the bullpen used in the way that Craig Counsell maybe designed it to be used all along. I want to start with PCA, though. I thought it was really interesting because you have been on what he hasn't been doing and why he has struggled to the extent that he has. And last night, I think that it didn't seem really that big of a deal at the time, but you identified when Yu Darvish made a non-competitive first pitch to PCA in the first at bat, and it was like a 58-foot curveball, and it bounced in the dirt. You said that PCA relaxed after that. He had 3 hits after that. I don't know if it's cause and effect, but could you explain and remind our listeners why you think that was such an important pitch and what it meant to PCA's night?
Well, cause and effect to me, David, with that situation was Pete is up there, and he's, the adrenaline rush of playing at a young age and having the season he had or the period of time that he had where, there were MVP chants around baseball because of him and people talking. You want to continue that thing going. Well, the league kind of flipped the script on him and said, we're not throwing you strikes now. So he's had his struggles. And he's continuing to try to go up there and be aggressive swinging. Well, the league is not allowing him to swing at strikes. They are just not going to throw him strikes. And I thought it was big that Darvish spun that breaking ball in the dirt well out of the zone. It was either a curveball or a changeup, but well out of the zone to where as soon as you saw it, you knew it's not even close. And what that did is it allows Pete to actually see a pitch come in, track it to home plate or to the dirt, not think of swinging, and then be able to take a step out and take a breath and slow the at-bat down. And now all of a sudden you've seen one pitch already, and it's not a strike, and it's well out of the zone. Now all of a sudden you get to be a baseball player again. The adrenaline rush can subside a little bit, and you can actually let the talent that you have come out in your performance. And I thought yesterday, finally, he got to some 3-1 counts. He got to 2-0 counts. he forced because of his teammates around him getting on base and then him taking a few pitches. He got to advantageous counts. His swing is great. It's the at-bat of what he's swinging at is not great, and the league is doing that, and he gets strikes, and he get 3 hits.
Yeah, when he was able to get into those 3-2 counts, you knew he was going to get strikes, and that kind of made it so much easier on him, Ron. It felt like up to that point he was aiding the Padres getting him out in the first couple games.
Yeah, there's a difference, Mike, when you look at hitters. It's for me. I shouldn't say for everybody, but for me, when I look at hitters, there's multiple ways you end up getting out and go into these slumps. One is mechanics of your swing. We've talked about different guys' mechanics through this year, and I've just said until this changes, the result's not going to change. The mechanics of the swing are not right for some guys. Then there are other guys, I say, the mechanics of the swing are fine, but you're not allowing the game that's being played to work in your favor. You're too aggressive, and the league isn't throwing you strikes, and that's in Pete's case. And he's a young 23-year-old player wanting to hit from the on-deck circle. I get it. But you have to be able to pay attention to what the league has done after he had an MVP caliber first half. They were not going to let him swing at strikes. And then San Diego, on to put the icing on a cake, they had 3 people here over the last 2 weeks watching us. I know all 3 of them very well. I've been joking with them all week, because we're sitting in a dining room. I knew that there's no chance they're going to throw him strikes. Well, you know what? They got forced to have to do that in Game 3 because of the situation and then that first pitch from Darvish. The situation dictated they had to throw him strikes. Each swing is outstanding. It was, what he's swinging at was making it difficult to hit.
Coom, don't want to overstate this or get too caught up in the moment, but when you see the Padres and them going home, I look at that matchup as a team that was built for the postseason the Cubs have now eliminated. And I do wonder, and I'm curious what your opinion is on this, are the Brewers a better matchup for the Cubs than the Padres seemed?
I think if you look on paper, maybe you could make a case for that. I don't know. I look at the Brewers and I look at how they play, and we had the season series by 1 game. I think 7-7. I forget what it is, but I think by 1 game. The thing you got to always remember about Milwaukee is they know how to win. So you can take all of this, who's matched up with what. Milwaukee figured out how to win a long time ago. They've been in the playoffs, and they've been doing it, and they've been doing it, and they've been doing it. So you may not know the name on the back of the jersey all the time, and they've got some of those too, some star players, but they know how to win, and they know how to play winning baseball, and I think that's what it's about in October. And we did a little bit of that yesterday. We need to do a lot more of that in this next series.
Ron, we did talk a little bit about DJ Rayborn calling an out on Xander Bogaerts on a pitch that seemed clearly to be a ball, and that's it was a needed out. It was good for the Cubs that it happened.
Huge play.
And then you get a couple of hit batsmen, and again I don't think it would have gotten to that point. I think, let's say he walked after the first hit batsman, I think that Brad Keller would have been taken out of the game. I don't think he would have gotten the opportunity to load the bases there. But nonetheless, that was, as you say, just a big moment in the game. And listen, if the Cubs had somehow found a way to get that game tied up or to lose that game, that would have been bad for the Cubs. That would have been a choke job because they had the game won and they got out of it. But man, that was when you saw them yelling and you saw their reaction, you can't really blame them. And I know that won't be the case next year when they get to the ABS system. But I'm just wondering Was that as bad from your perspective as it looked on television?
Yeah, I don't disagree. There were, I thought Rayburn did actually a decent job. I don't know how he rated. I try not to look at that the next day,
right?
Specifically, just for my own mental health, because I don't want to get too involved in being too hard on the umpires.
Yes,
the player in me comes out on the broadcast. You guys hear it, but I don't want that to be the crutch of my broadcast of getting on the umpires all the time. They got a really hard job. That was a big play. There's no doubt. We had a couple plays in that series and a couple pitches that went way against the Cubs. I remember earlier in the series, a big at bat for Ian, and he, it was a high fastball, and he got called on a strike that wasn't close. That would have flipped the whole inning around. It didn't. That last play, there are times in a ball game where when you make a mistake like that, it's costly for the other team. There's just no way of getting around that. Missing a pitch in the second inning on a 0-1 pitch, and then missing one for strike 3 in the ninth, in a close ball, it's just different. I'll say two things about that. I thought Rayburn did a good job by not ejecting Bogaerts and not doing anything to the manager who was coming out to save him, even though Schultz pointed back at him and yelled, but he just kept his head straight forward. And good for Rayburn of being, understanding the situation and, the situation. He did a good job. He didn't call the right pitch. He didn't kick those guys out of the game. But if I'm Bogaerts, I'd have done the same thing.
Yeah.
So, Coom, I think we saw the Craig Counsell that we expected in terms of managing the bullpen and pushing the right buttons and going, deep into his relief corps because of the need and how specific he has each job defined. I was a little surprised that he didn't go into his bench much, and I was also maybe a little surprised that he didn't shake up his lineup a little. Maybe I shouldn't have been, but do you think that changes against the Brewers? Do you feel like there was an opportunity last night? I felt like Matt Shaw could have been pinch hit for with Ballesteros at a time when I don't think that it would have you would have been missing much, and Matt Shaw did not look great at the plate. How should we expect Craig Counsell to manage this roster in the Brewers series, and will it be markedly different?
I don't think you're going to see much difference. My question to you, David, would be this. The Cubs had the lead. Once you have the lead in a game like this that we were playing yesterday, where every pitch and every out is vital, you want your best defensive team out there. Matt Shaw gives us the best defensive team at third base, so that's why he didn't use Ballesteros as the game progressed. Now, if the script was flipped like it was in Game 2, Ballesteros came in the game and hit. So that's the thing that's going to change it. If the Cubs need offense and they're behind, you're going to see them unload the bench, in particular Ballesteros, if he gets a right-handed pitcher on the bump where he can do a little damage. But if the Cubs are ahead, you want your best defensive club out there, and that's going to be Matt. I will say this. I would think Counts has given some thought to some lineup change a little bit, and maybe injecting another guy maybe in the starting lineup. And it could be Matt. It could be, that sits a game or so if Counts thinks the matchup and he can get some offense out there that might help. That could be the case. I don't know that for fact, and I have not asked Counts at all, but you can see Matty struggling. There's no doubt.
Ron Coomer on The Score is sponsored by Huntington, home of early pay. More at huntington.com/yourmoney. And Ron, I thought Mike Schultz got it right when he said after the game that Dansby Swanson was phenomenal and killed them with his defense. And I really felt that the Cubs' defense was excellent in all three games. Swanson in particular was making play after play. He was making everything look so easy. even the one where he jumped up and knocked the ball down and threw out a rise who had stopped running. Wow, what's that about? I mean, Dansby Swanson had a hell of a series.
Yeah, he got some hits. If you remember, in game one, he got a couple hits and making great plays. There was a play he made in the hole in yesterday's game where Matt Shaw backed off on the ball, and I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think Dansby called it, on the second half quickly. I don't know if that's the case, or Matt just backed off, which was a good play by Matt. But for Dansby to make that play, that was like, that's 10 out of 10 for difficulty for a shortstop. To go that far to your right and have to round the ball and then throw as your momentum is going basically towards the on-deck circle for the Cubs, and throw across your body, and he threw a strike where Bushy could stretch and get to the ball, and they got him by a step. That's just a great play, and sometimes you can talk about that in the broadcast, sometimes I can't, but I just went, now that is a big league shortstop play in a big situation to end the inning. That was like, oh my gosh, that's big time.
Coom, all's well that ends well, but in real time we discussed the decision to remove Jamison Tyone after 4 innings. There were 12 out. I wondered if he would try to go for 15 to push back the bullpen part of the program until you had to go to the bullpen. He did not do that. It worked out, but I wonder how much of that decision was influenced by the previous day's decision to stick with Shota Imanaga and to go with your starter maybe one batter too long, and what he saw in Tyone, because I thought up to that point, through 4, Tyone was very sharp, and you could have justified sending him back out there in the 5th.
You definitely could have justified it. J-Mo, we haven't talked about him really, but I think you talk about a veteran pitcher pitching like a veteran and going out there and being like, I got this. Don't worry about it, boys. Watch this. Fastball, changeup. Fastball, curveball. And he was dumping in breaking pitch and changeup after changeup. But here was the thing. Whether it had influence from the game before or not, I'm not sure. But we do know this. When San Diego, and I talked with the scouts about this too the last few days from other teams, we were discussing. When you put together a lineup and you have at the bottom of the lineup or that 6, 7, 8 spot of 3 lefties in a row, that pocket of lefties, instantly that triggers Tommy Hotovy and Counts to go, okay, my lefties, Theobar, Pomerantz, Rogers, okay, guys, as you see this game progressing and we get to the middle of the game, when you see that pocket coming up, you guys, someone understand you're getting a call. We are going to go to you. That's where you're going to make your money. That's what's going to happen. And that's exactly what the case was. And I think because Counts got burned maybe in game 2 by, not going with what he pregame did, what he kind of determined he was going to do because he saw Shota pitching well for him. He went right to what he was locked in on doing, and I thought it was the right move. I really did. You didn't give the lefties got through that pocket of left-handed hitters, and Theobar did his job, and you didn't give any momentum back or any good feel for the offense for San Diego. I thought it was great move, the right move, and it worked.
Ron, thanks a ton for getting up with us. Just quickly on the way out, who would you start tomorrow?
I would start Matthew Boyd.
Okay. Beautiful.
Great stuff, Coom. I'm with you.
Say
yep.
Tomorrow, so yesterday he got up in the pen in the 9th. That's basically like his side day, Mike. Use that as his side day. A little more adrenaline for a side day than normal, but that's use it. And I would pitch Matthew in game 1.
Great stuff. Thanks a ton, Ron.
Thanks, Coom.
Boys, thank you. Have a great weekend or a great rest of the week, and I'm sure we're going to talk soon.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you know it. We'll be all over you.
Love it.
That's our guy, Ron Coomer. That's great stuff.
Who makes sense starting game 1 for the Cubs? I wonder what people think. I got a burst of adrenaline last night when you see the scoreboard tell you Matthew Boyd warming up because it was all hands on deck. How fresh would he be if he comes back tomorrow?